From the Gray Man Briefing, this is a summary of recent developments regarding the Second Amendment, cybersecurity, protests, supply chain disruptions, national security, law and order, free speech, censorship, government oversight, and more.
For the third quarter of 2025, this is Update 2 to the Gray Man Briefing's summary of recent developments. Across the country, in Texas, 12 armed suspects attacked an ICE detention center, and a separate ambush on Border Patrol agents near McAllen left the gunman dead. In Central Texas, over 100 people were killed by flash floods following heavy rain. In Illinois, a gang-related drive-by in Chicago killed 4 and wounded 14, and the state raised taxes on gas, nicotine, telecom, and sports betting. In California, protests targeting Palantir and the Dodgers over ICE ties. Anti-ICE riots in LA led to over 575 arrests, and cannabis and fuel taxes were increased there in the state. In Washington, masked agitators assaulted journalists at an anti-ICE protest near Seattle. In Oklahoma, a vandal disabled power to a weather radar system. In New York, protesters clashed outside of Cry Precision, and pro-communist activists marched in New York City. In Florida, 200 Marines were deployed to support ICE logistics under Title X. In Oregon, federal agents responded to violent anti-ICE riots in Portland and arrested a suspect for vandalism and sexual assault on officers. In Washington, D.C., trans activists were arrested at the Supreme Court, and anti-Trump protesters staged a Capitol die-in over Medicaid cuts. In North Carolina, Marines from MCAS New River began deploying to support ICE operations. On a national level, authorities recalled over 5 million products, including vehicles, batteries, appliances, eggs, and meals, due to fire, injury, amputation, and contamination risks. The DOJ proposed merging ATF into DEA, prompting warnings from gun rights groups about expanded enforcement powers. The DOJ concluded that Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide and stated there's no client list or blackmail evidence and no further information would be disclosed. Protests continue nationwide over ICE, surveillance technology, and foreign policy, including hundreds of arrests and violent incidents tied to Antifa, pro-Palestinian, pro-communist, and trans rights groups. Pro-Iranian and pro-Palestinian rallies were held in over 150 cities, with increasing anti-U.S. messaging. And the Space Force delayed its new MEO missile tracking satellite launch to 2027, while expanding procurement to launch the Golden Dome defense system. And beginning with the Second Amendment briefing, claiming that they want to improve operational efficiency, the DOJ is planning on merging the ATF with the DEA. But groups like Gun Owners of America and Firearms Policy Coalition say the merger would consolidate surveillance and enforcement authority into a powerful agency with reduced transparency. Critics believe this could lead to greater criminalization of lawful gun owners and fewer checks on federal power. The DOJ may proceed with functional consolidation even without full legislative approval. However, while almost all gun rights activists are against this, the NRA are the only ones not opposing it. They've made no statement. And let's move into the major crime briefing. On the night of July 2nd, a mass shooting occurred outside the Artiste Restaurant and Lounge during an album release party for rapper Mellow Buckzy. 4 individuals were killed and 14 others injured. Authorities suspect that the attack was gang-related and tied to the NLMB gang. Multiple shooters opened fire from a vehicle using rifles and handguns. No arrests were made, and the investigation is ongoing. And in Naples, Florida, on July 6th, law enforcement arrested a 23-year-old man after he entered a church lobby, acting erratically, claiming to be a trained killer, and asked how much money it would take to prevent a mass shooting. He was carrying a loaded handgun with a round in the chamber and 3 fully loaded magazines, about 60 rounds in total. Staff quietly alerted law enforcement and moved children to safety. He was arrested on 2 felony counts of threat to discharge a destructive device and disorderly conduct, detained under the Baker Act for trespassing in the church. Now let's look at the DVE briefing. On July 4th, a coordinated attack targeted the Prairieland Detention Center in Alvarado, Texas. Suspects dressed in black bloc attire launched fireworks at the facility and then opened fire, injuring a responding officer. They also did other acts of vandalism and tagged a lot of vehicles on the property. Law enforcement recovered weapons, tactical gear, and a resist fascism flag. 10 suspects have been charged out of an estimated group of 12 that were on scene. And separately, on July 7th in McAllen, Texas, 27-year-old Ryan Mosqueda attempted to ambush Border Patrol agents outside a federal facility. He opened fire with a rifle while wearing tactical gear, but was killed during the confrontation. No federal agents were injured, though a local police officer sustained an injury. Authorities found additional weapons and Latin writings in his vehicle, and the FBI is leading the investigation. And let's go ahead and move into the civil unrest briefing. Pro-Iranian activists organized thousands of hands-off Iran protests across the U.S., demanding that the U.S. avoid involvement in any conflict with Iran and calling for Israel to stop military actions. Protesters also asserted that Iran has the right to develop and possess nuclear weapons. These demonstrations have been largely peaceful, but are increasingly coordinated with other anti-U.S. and pro-Palestinian movements. Over in Portland, Oregon, federal agents declared a riot and dispersed violent demonstrators at the ICE facility. Protesters used fireworks, lasers, and blocked entryways, injuring 4 officers. Separately, one protester was arrested for vandalizing the ICE building and sexually assaulting multiple federal officers. Authorities reported 20 arrests over several weeks of unrest. In Los Angeles, over 575 people were arrested during June's anti-ICE demonstrations, and this is just the first 2 weeks of June, so we don't have any information yet on the last 2 weeks of June. By July 1st, another 40 were formally charged with violent offenses, including attempted murder, assaulting police, and threatening minors. Some protesters reportedly used weapons and attacked mounted officers. The LA County's district attorney attributed the chaos to organized unrest and damages from those riots as of June 15th, so we're looking for new numbers, but for now, damages from the riots exceeded $32 million. And during an anti-ICE protest near Seattle, independent journalists were assaulted by masked agitators. One journalist was choked, hit with a sap gloves, and left concussed, while another was sprayed with insecticide and kicked. So police reports were filed, and an investigation has been confirmed by Tukwila Police Department. The journalist criticized local media for not covering the attack, and the event reignited concerns about press freedom at protest. Moving on June 25th, trans activists protested outside the U.S. Supreme Court following a ruling that upheld Tennessee's ban on gender mutilation procedures for minors. The group blocked streets and released smoke grenades. 9 people were arrested, including the co-founder of Gender Liberation Movement. The protest featured signs such as Trans Lives Matters and Protect Trans Youth. Police responded quickly to restore order. The LA Dodgers falsely claimed that ICE agents attempted to enter the stadium property, prompting anti-ICE protests and a subsequent $1 million donation by the team to support illegal immigrants. DHS clarified that CBP officers were off-duty and parked in a public lot. In Washington, D.C., anti-Trump protesters occupied the Capitol Rotunda in a die-in protest against health care funding cuts, or perceived funding cuts, and the One Big Beautiful Bill. Demonstrators wore shorts and held signs saying, "Medicare and Medicaid cuts kill," and "Healthcare cuts will kill." The protest disrupted Capitol access for a brief period, and organizers say the demonstration aimed to highlight the consequences of reduced medical coverage. Authorities allowed the protest to proceed with minimal interventions. And since June 20th, over 150 pro-Palestinian rallies have also taken place across the U.S. These demonstrations are typically peaceful marches, but are increasingly joined by pro-Iranian activists chanting against the U.S. and Israel. Organizers criticize U.S. foreign policy and armed support to Israel. Many events feature anti-Trump messaging and Palestinian flags. In Brooklyn, New York, anti-ICE activists protested outside of Cry Precision, alleging the company supplies tactical gear to ICE. A physical altercation occurred between protesters and a supporter or possibly an employee there. Separately in the city, pro-communist activists affiliated with the Revolutionary Communist of America marched with Soviet-style flags and pride flags, denouncing capitalism. The march was peaceful but drew criticism on social media. And in Palo Alto, California, pro-Palestinian activists protested outside of Palantir's headquarters during a recruitment event. The group accused the company of enabling mass surveillance, aiding ICE deportations, and supporting Israel operations in Gaza. Now moving into the health and safety briefing, we've got a lot of recalls. This is something the Gray Man Briefing just began publishing. The first one here is Chevrolet. They recalled over 62,000 Silverado HD trucks, years 2019 to 2024, due to brake sensor leaks that cause fires. Ford also recalled 200,000 Mach-E SUVs, the Mustangs, for battery-related door latch failures that cause people to actually get trapped in the back of that Mustang. Coleman camping cots were recalled after finger amputations. Anchor recalled over 1.5 million lithium-ion portable battery banks. And more than 1.7 million dozen brown eggs were recalled for salmonella. Chicken Alfredo meals from Kroger and Walmart have listeria. Astro AI's mini fridges and over about almost 2 million air conditioners by Medea were recalled for fire and mold dangers. Consumers are urged to stop use and seek replacements or refunds. Now looking at government oversight, Illinois raised its state gas tax to 48.3 cents per gallon, telecommunication taxes to 8.65%, and nicotine product taxes to 45%, while also introducing a sports betting excise tax and expanding local sales taxes in about 50 municipalities. Similarly, in California, the gas tax rose to 61.2% per gallon under SB 1, and the cannabis excise tax increased from 15 to 19%. Critics warn these hikes could significantly raise prices for consumers. Some analysts project gas prices in California could rise toward $8 per gallon in worst-case scenarios. Officials argue, though, that the increases are needed to support public services and regulatory agencies. And kind of the big news this week, an obtained memo released by the Department of Justice claims that the DOJ and FBI conducted a comprehensive review of all investigative material related to Jeffrey Epstein, including over 300 gigabytes of digital and physical evidence. They claim that the presence of, quote, images and videos of victims who are either minors or appear to be minors, end quote, and, quote, over 10,000 downloaded videos and images of illegal child sex abuse material, end quote. The agency stated that the systematic review revealed no incriminating client list, and there was, quote, no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions, end quote. They further emphasized, quote, we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties, end quote. Additionally, the FBI concluded that Epstein died by suicide, noting, quote, nobody entered any of the tiers in the shoe, that's the cell, during the time frame surrounding his death, which was further supported, according to them, by enhanced video footage. However, the GBC, the Gray Man Briefing Classified, reviewed the footage and found that the cell doors seen in the video do not resemble the photos of the cell door that were released in 2019 by the DOJ. Additionally, approximately 1 minute of video footage was redacted or otherwise removed from the videos that were released by the DOJ a couple of days ago on July 7th. This was from 11:59 p.m. to 12 midnight. There's no video, so about a minute is missing. The memo also indicated that no additional information would be released to the public, saying, quote, no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. So let's move into natural disaster. On July 4th, remnants of Tropical Storm Barry triggered flash floods across central Texas. Up to 11 inches of rain fell within hours, causing the Guadalupe River to rise 20 feet in just 90 minutes. More than 100 people were killed, including attendees of a Christian girls' camp. Search and rescue operations continue. Officials are investigating potential failures in early warning systems as rain was forecasted to continue. However, all indications are that warnings were issued and additional staff were on hand ahead of time. Other claims, such as cloud seeding, are still being monitored by the Gray Man Briefing. And looking at national security now, U.S. Northern Command confirmed that 200 Marines from Marine Wing Support Squadron 272 at MCAS River are deploying to Florida to support ICE logistically. The deployment approved under Title 10 authority is part of a broader plan to involve up to 700 active duty and reserve personnel. The Marines will not participate in enforcement or have contact with detainees. Future deployments are scheduled for Louisiana and Texas. The move reflects expanded military support for domestic immigration enforcement infrastructure. And the U.S. Space Force established a new Mission Operations Center at Buckley Space Force Base to support the upcoming deployment of resilient missile warning and tracking satellites in medium Earth orbit, or MEO. Originally scheduled for late 2026, the launch is now delayed until spring 2027 due to technical readiness concerns. Despite that delay, the agency actually expanded procurement from 4 to 6 satellites under Epoch1. These satellites will enhance missile detection and defense capabilities as part of the upcoming Golden Dome system. The MEO layer complements existing low and geosynchronous orbit networks, ensuring greater resilience and accuracy in detecting ballistic and hypersonic threats. So that is it for this week's summary of recent developments. Remember that these briefings are delivered in real time to Grayman Briefing subscribers, sent via the Telegram and Signal apps, and also via weekly emails. Please interact with this broadcast to help us increase its views and engagement. Thanks for listening, and as always, remain aware, be vigilant, and stay safe.